Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Ashley and I am here to make Wix simple. So we are going to be working in the Wix editor today. So if you're using one of the other Wix products, some of this stuff will apply to you and some of it won't, but we're just in the classic editor today, not Wix Studio, not Editor X, not Wix Addy, or any of the other kind of products that Wix has released over the years. So we're talking all about mobile optimization. This is such an important thing to make sure that you're doing on your Wix website so that people who are viewing your website on mobile are having a great experience. You can look at your site's analytics and see what percentage of your traffic is coming from desktop and what it's coming from mobile. And I know we spend a lot of time because we're designing these websites on a desktop or a laptop or just like a traditional computer. We're spending so much attention and time doing the desktop version of the site and then oftentimes forgetting about the mobile version. So it's so important if you think about how often you are visiting a website, you're most likely on your cell phone when you're doing so. So we want to make sure that our site looks great on mobile devices, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So first things first, mobile optimization is going to be the last step in the process of designing your website. I always wait until I have everything in place on desktop to make those changes on the mobile view of the website, and that is because it's not this like automatic thing. If you've used a template, especially one that's coming right from Wix, chances are a lot of pieces will kind of stay in place on mobile. But if you're really building something custom or making major changes to a template, a lot of those pieces might fall out of place while you are kind of making that transition onto the mobile view of the website. So it does kind of take a little bit of attention to make sure that everything's looking good. So I just finished doing a Wix refresh on this website for a client. A Wix refresh is a service that I offer if you've started your website and you just kind of got lost somewhere in the process. A refresh is where I kind of come in and save the day and make sure everything is working as it should and that it looks great. I also do a Wix rescue. So if things really got out of control and you're really needing kind of more support, I can go in and start or work with what you've started, but make it much better. So this client came to me. She had just started on her own and got stuck, and we've just taken this to like a place where it's ready to go. I've done all of my desktop edits. Everything's in place where I want it on the desktop view of the site. So now we're going to hop into mobile, and I'm going to walk you through my process, the steps that I take to make sure that everything is as it should be on the mobile view of the website. So in your Wix editor, you can see over here in this menu that I am toggled onto the desktop view of the site. That's likely what you've spent most of your time, in as you've been building your website. We are going to switch things over to this mobile view of the website within the editor so that we can see what this site is going to look like on mobile devices. So I'm going to click into that and you'll see that it's going to break down the site into more of that vertical setup instead of this kind of full desktop mode. And already I can see some things are not how I want them to look on mobile. I have a lot of clients who they never even look at the mobile view of their site, and they've spent so much time on desktop. It looks really good on desktop, but they just never click over into this mobile view to make those changes. So I'm going to go through exactly how I would optimize a site for mobile in the order that I typically go in and kind of cover some things that I am encountering often and some things that can just make this easier for you. So first things first, I like to touch the things that are going to be visible on every page first. So first of all, the menu. Your mobile menu is different than your desktop menu, and you can see here that it is kind of by default going to be these stacked 3 bars. You can change what that icon looks like. Like anything in the Wix editor, when you click and select an item, you're going to be given all of the options that you have to make changes to that item. So I have this mobile menu selected, and I can see I can edit the menu. I can go into the settings, the design, animate, hide, or get some help with that particular element. So if you let's go into the design of this first. I'm going to click into that. You can see that this is where I'm going to see the different icon options that I have for the menu. So you can kind of make a selection based on the branding of your site, and then you can go one step further and customize the actual aesthetics of that icon by setting, the colors of that icon. So there are a lot of choices, and I just would suggest to choose the option that fits your brand best. And then if you do have specific colors that you're using, to then apply those as well. So that is the actual where you're going to find the icon options. The settings for this, you only have the option to either freeze the menu or have it unfrozen. So not a ton of settings right there. And then you can actually edit the menu. So what that's going to do is it's going to pop out the mobile menu box. You can see that this is only taking up, like 80% of the screen here. You can have it be a full screen experience. You would just click and toggle this to take up the full screen. So it's really up to you what kind of style menu you want. I think it's nice sometimes to see the back of the website so that you know where you are. And then within this box, you're going to see there's the icon to close the menu. Again, that would be something that you would customize, or that you could customize and change the the color of or the style of. And then the actual mobile menu itself. So these are the elements that are going to navigate somebody to these particular pages. And while I have this selected, I can see that I'm given the same type of options here. Things like animating it, adjusting the design, the layout, the settings, etc. So the main thing here is, the aesthetics of this particular menu. Is it legible? Is the font big enough? Are the colors on brand? Do they need to be adjusted? Do you like it left justified? Do you want it to be center justified? Those type of adjustments can all be made here. And then the social bar that I have on the desktop version is also going to show up here. So I'm happy with this. A lot of times the menu is pretty close to, how you would want it, but depending on what you're trying to achieve, you can really get specific about the customization that you do there. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to click off of this and close this menu, and I'm happy with that. So the menu is going to be visible on every page because it's part of the site header. The header is that first strip of content on your website, and that goes for both the desktop version and the mobile version of the site. So in this case, there's just a really simple logo here, and that's going to be visible on every page. I'm going to just shrink this slightly, just so that it's not taking up too much space, especially because there's not a ton going on in this particular header. So to keep it as simple as possible. Your header is going to be visible, like I said, on every page. So you just want to make sure if there are elements there that they make sense. And you don't want your header to take up too much of this vertical space because it's just going to force people to scroll a lot when they're landing on different pages of your site. So keeping it as brief as possible is definitely my recommendation. So we've gone through the menu and the header. We're going to scroll down and we're going to look at the footer really quickly. So I'm just scrolling down to the bottom of this page, and then I'm going to see there's kind of this on this particular website, which is a lot of anchor links as opposed to individual pages. We actually have a strip on the main page that serves as the footer, but a lot of times in a footer on a website, that's where you're going to find contact information and the like. So I'm just adjusting the footer here, which is just kind of the tag for copyright and my particular links. I'm going to make this as small as possible because it doesn't need to take up a ton of space. But you can tell that you're adjusting the footer and the header. When you select those strips, you're going to have an orange frame around it, as opposed to if I'm, talking about a strip or a section, you can see that frame around it is going to be a different color. It's going to be purple. So take a look at your footer and the mobile view of your footer. Does it make sense? Are things aligned as you want them to be aligned? Your approach to kind of rearranging these elements is going to be the same as it is on desktop, where you can select, the text and you can move it around, you can drop it where you want it to drop it. So how you're going to be moving those elements is going to be the same. It's just a different format as opposed to the desktop view. I'm going to show you just a quick tip right here. Not a lot of people who aren't Wix designers know about this, but I often have in my toolbar up here, my toolbar pulled up, and that is so that I can quickly center elements, especially on mobile. I really prefer most of my text and my images to be center justified on a mobile view. It just feels cleaner, it feels more cohesive. And a really quick way to center justify something is utilizing the toolbar versus kind of selecting an item and then dragging it over. Eventually you're going to get grid lines and it's going to snap to center, but you can really quickly, if you're wanting to center this particular element of text, if you have your toolbar pulled up like this, you can go to this align tool, click it, and then choose how you want that to be justified. So I'm going to align that to center, and it's going to take care of that for me. So that's kind of a nice tool, especially on mobile. I use it both desktop and mobile, but it's a nice tool to kind of make some of these things a little bit quicker for you. So we've talked about our menu, header, footer. If you do utilize the kind of back to top button on your mobile view, you can make the same type of adjustments to that as we did with the menu. So, changing the design of it, what is the icon, changing the actual icon, what icon are we using? There are kind of some fun options here, customizing the colors, and then deciding if you want that back to top button to be on the right or the left. And that is another element that's going to show up on every page of your mobile view. So those are the elements that I always take care of first before kind of going page by page. There is no like magic button to make everything, go where you want it to go. There was a period of time where there was kind of like an AI assisted mobile optimization. I haven't seen that lately, or I haven't been prompted with that lately. So I'm not sure if it's something that they just kind of, let me make my face a little bit smaller here. Yeah, I don't know if they maybe don't offer that anymore. It didn't really, it would have been great if it would have done it, done a good job of it, but it did not. So while we're here in this kind of left-hand menu on the mobile view of the site, I'm down here on this little wrench, which shows you the mobile tools. These are optional elements. This is where if you didn't already have a back to top button loaded, where you could add one of those. I'm just going to go through these 4 options. They're completely optional, and they're not necessarily, unless your particular template had these preloaded, they're not like default. So the quick action bar, like it says here, it lets visitors take action on your site. So things like calling, emailing, that type of thing. If we were to add this to our site, it's as simple as clicking this plus sign. It's going to be added to the bottom here. It may look familiar to you based on other Wix websites that you've seen. Just like the menu, just like the back to top button, when you have this quick action bar selected, you're going to see all of the options that you have for that quick action bar. So you can set up your phone numbers so that it'll automatically call your business, your email, connect to any social sites, and then you can make the same type of adjustments to the visuals of this particular element. So the default, it looks like, is this kind of like colorful display, but you can definitely change the design based on some options. And I want to say too that, there are these default options that Wix offers when it comes to design elements. Here you can see there are bubbles, and most of the time you can go a step further in customizing these. So say you like this kind of dark layout, you can actually click this customize design and change the color of that particular whatever design element. So you can usually take the customization of these different options one step further, which I definitely suggest doing so that everything's matching your branding and it just feels very professional. So that is the quick action bar. You can both set up the actions There are different actions that you can choose from. You can see here when we click into more actions, you can really get specific about what actions you want to be available, and as well as providing custom actions. So that is a really good option. I know from my experience, depending on your business, right? But from my experience, I love when I'm landing on a site and I know that I'm wanting to either call or email or reach out, and it's really easy to do so. So a quick action bar might be a good addition to your website. I'm not going to utilize it on this website. This is somebody who's just growing their business, and we're not quite there yet. The back to top button is already added, so we've kind of gone over that. A welcome screen. Depending on your type of business, a welcome screen can be a really fun addition. It is what your visitors are going to see when they load your website onto their phone, when they visit your website for the first time. I use this for like businesses that already have a strong brand, so like a coffee shop, and usually keep it as simple as possible, where you can choose from all of these different animation options, add your logo, customize the colors, and then kind of when somebody lands on your website, they're going to have this kind of welcome experience. So again, totally optional. And then the final mobile tool here is to choose the theme color. So if somebody's visiting your site using Chrome, for Android, they're going to see a specific theme color based on your settings here. Okay, so those are pretty much all of the like top level things that are really good to take a look at on your mobile view. But now we're going to get into the specifics. So my guess is that if you have gone anywhere outside of a template, you are going to run into some things that when you hop into this mobile view and look through your site, they're going to be really wonky. And so I'm going to show you the steps that I take to make sure that everything is looking really good before hitting that publish button for the final time and making these changes live. So this is something that you do have to go through page by page. This particular site there aren't a lot of pages on this site. We've utilized anchor links for the most part so that everything is just as simple as possible. But we're going to start on the home page. There are two different ways to navigate to that. You can use the switch page menu on the top and go right to the home page, or you can pop over to the menus and pages and then go make sure that you have the home page selected. So the homepage is a great place to start. It's where people are going to land when they open your website, and that's what we're going to do. So this is a really good example. This very first strip here is a good example of something where looking at it right away, I can tell this is not how I want things to be displaying. This strip is too long. This font isn't big enough. So let's just go through and make things right here. So this tutorial is assuming that you've built a site using the desktop version. You're never going to start with a mobile version. So a lot of the tools and a lot of the techniques that we're using here are the same as desktop. We're just doing them in the mobile view. So for instance, this here, I've clicked on it. I can see I've got a blue frame around it and that it's a strip. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make this strip smaller. I like to get as much back in like newspaper advertising. They referred to everything that you could see when your newspaper was folded and like sitting in a stack as above the fold, right? So it's above the fold. That means looking at it, even without opening it, you're getting information. So the same type of concept applies to our websites. Whether we're loading a website onto our desktop browser or on our cell phone, you still have this above the fold experience where that first initial thing without having to scroll is what your client and what your website visitor is experiencing. So I like to make sure that that above the fold experience, both on desktop and mobile, is something that makes sense. I don't like to like cut people's heads off like halfway through or, have so much information or not enough information. And in this case, I am going to just make this strip smaller. I'm doing that by just hovering so that I have a top up a top down arrow, clicking and dragging just like you do on the desktop view of your site. And then in my experience, this logo feels too big. It feels like it's taking too much space on this page. So I'm just going to select it. I can see I have my image selected, and I'm going to drag the corner of it to make it just a little bit smaller. And then while I still have this selected, I'm going to go over to my toolbar and I'm going to align it to center. Now, this text is also too small for me. It is not really reading well, so I'm going to select the text. You can kind of click through this like plus sign and make your text bigger this way, or you can actually open the full settings of this and, type in the size that you want it to be. You can also change things about the mobile view of elements that don't change the desktop view. So say I wanted to, based on the way that this is, based on this image that's behind this picture, or on the back, oh my goodness, based on the background of the strip, the font here, or the text, I changed it from like a dark gray to a black, right? That's not going to change the color of the text on the desktop view. That doesn't apply for all the changes that you make, but for many of them. So right off the bat, the size of things is feeling better here. I'm also going to click into the background of this strip and just see if the spacing is something I want to play around with. I often will just experiment with the settings that I'm given to see if they are solving problems that I'm having. Okay, I'm happy with that. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to pull up this anchor link right here, which is this kind of teal line across my client's face. And I'm going to pull that up. Anchor links, you want them to live like at the top of where you want that link to load. So if I kept that anchor link in the middle of her face and I'm clicking on the link that's taking me there, it's going to load the half bottom of her face. So those are always going at the very top of where you want the page to load. So I'm moving that up, and then I'm selecting this, and I can see that I have a strip. I'm going to actually move this up to meet that. And because I feel like she's getting cropped a little bit too much this way, I'm going to adjust the height of this column. So I have this selected. I can see I have column 1 selected, and then I'm going to find that up and down arrow at the bottom edge of this little frame, and I'm going to click and I'm going to pull it down. So depending on what type of elements you're working with on your site, whether it's an image or a column or a strip or a repeater, the specifics of how you're adjusting those elements is going to change, but your need to change them will not, if that makes sense. Okay, and I'm going to continue to scroll down. There's too much space here for me. This font here is still a little bit too small, so I'm going to go ahead and make this kind of, I don't know, a size that feels right. A lot of this is really just going by feel. I've been doing this for a really long time, so I would love to say like there are just like hard rules and, your mobile font should always be 35 points or something, but that's absolutely not the case. It has everything to do with, your particular site, your brand, the fonts that you're using. So I very much like support and encourage people to like follow their gut instinct, because even people who don't consider themselves to be like designers, you still have that gut instinct. Like, when you land on a website, like when things feel off or weird, you don't get that kind of like feeling where you're like, oh, this is cohesive, this makes sense. So I've just adjusted those things, and then I'm going to move on to this next section. Sometimes the mobile view of your site is like so off your desktop site that you, for instance, right here, I'm getting this huge area of like blank chaos. I'm still scrolling down. It might be hard to tell. And you're like, what is happening here? You have a couple options for like troubleshooting. One, you can keep scrolling until you figure out what is happening. By scrolling all the way down all this blank text, realize like, okay, well, this is a section. I'm seeing that up down arrow. It's purple. I know that if I double click that, which it'll tell me right here, if I double click that, it's going to remove extra space. Another option is up here in the main kind of menu. If you go to this like zoom setting, you can zoom out a little bit, and then you're given kind of like a bird's eye view, and then it's a little bit easier to be like, oh, that's just like a bunch of extra space, which is a problem that happens often in Wix. And I do have a video for finding the extra white space and removing the extra white space. So if that's a problem that you're running into, make sure to check out that video. So I know that this is a section. I know that if I double click here, I'm going to just do that really quickly. It's going to cut off that extra space. Now I have to zoom up and find it. Look, it brought it right up where it should be. Okay, so now I'm just going to work on the next strip. This is and I just know this from having built the site, this is a section it's a repeater. I'm not going to do a ton here. I'm just going to adjust the spacing. You may know that a repeater, when you make the adjustment to one item in that repeater, it's going to adjust all of the items. So keeping that really simple, I've got my 3 elements, awesome. The next section I'm looking down, I try to get rid of, I'm going to see right here, I can see a little bit of extra white space. I'm going to do the same thing where I am going to just move this. I'm going to get rid of that extra space so that there wasn't that white strip in between. Okay, so it looks like the next section here is testimonials again. Font is too small. It seems like I'm mostly kind of sitting for this font around like 30, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that. This right here it should be a slider. It's a slideshow of testimonials, and I can just see it did not translate. So what I need to do here is I need to make an adjustment, and I'm going to, first of all, give that slider enough vertical space. It was cutting off the text. This font is going to be too small. It also is very narrow. The width of this text box is very narrow. And because I still have more horizontal space here, I'm going to allow it to take up more of that real estate. And then I'm going to make an adjustment to the actual size of this font. So let's start at if it was at 10, let's start at 15. That feels good. And then I'm going to pull this down a little bit more. So on something like this, a slideshow, unlike a repeater, your changes to one of these slides is not going to affect every slide. So if you are utilizing a slider on mobile view, you do need to select that slideshow and then toggle to each individual slide to make those adjustments. When I am going to go over to another slide in the slideshow, you're going to see it's still probably at 10 in terms of font. It's still very narrow, so I need to make those changes to every element on my slideshow. I'm going to go ahead and adjust the width here, and then I'm going to center it. I'm going to hold down my shift. I'm using a Mac. I'm going to hold down my shift key while I select both elements here so that when I center these, they are looking good. And actually what I've noticed here is this right left arrow is like smack dab in the center of the slideshow, which I don't want. So I'm going to go to the settings of the slideshow, and I'm going to try to find the settings for this. It looks like it's set up to automatically play on loading. So that's an option you can either turn on and off. 3 seconds between slides. I'm just going to turn off the auto loading, especially because that first testimonial is pretty long and I don't want somebody to get cut off. That's really annoying if you're in the middle of reading a testimonial. I do want to apply a little transition effect. And then, so obviously those little arrows were not within the settings of this. I'm going to go to layout and see if I can see those there. Yes. Navigation arrows. I'm turning those off because you can actually use these little toggle things to get where you need to go. So I feel like that's a good example of just in being curious and investigating an element to see what your options are when it comes to making adjustments to it. It looks like we've run into the same thing here where this strip, it just got way out of control. It is so long, it does not need to be so long. Instead of double clicking, well, actually I'm going to double click this and it should just pull it up to the base of that slideshow, which is what it did. But I do want to give it a little bit of wiggle room here, and that's just to mirror the desktop view of this site where there's this kind of background that the testimonial slider is sitting on top of. So that's why I'm doing that. And then there is a contact form here. That is all looking good. And then the last thing I'm noticing here is kind of just some basic contact info. I'm going to make adjustments to the size of this text because it is just not quite big enough. So sometimes people get into a situation where their text elements in their fonts on their mobile view are very large, or their desktop site as well. So you don't want it to be, completely like as big as possible. But again, just kind of, if you just get a feeling, just trust your kind of instinct that if something feels too small, and there's no harm in making it just a little bit bigger. So I'm just going to make these slightly bigger and then clean up some space here. So if you are working on the mobile view of your site and you notice there's a element that I know I have, I'm manually just dragging this. If there's an element that you have that you just do not see on your mobile view as you're making these changes, on your left-hand menu over here, you're going to see a hidden on mobile option. That's going to show you elements that for whatever reason, the Wix editor chose to hide on mobile. And sometimes, it's, I don't know how these decisions are made, but some of them make sense, some of them make no sense. So if you are working on your site or working on a page on your site and you are not finding an element that should be there, this is where you're going to look for that. The first place you're going to look for it. The other place you would look for it, I have a video of this as well, is your layers panel. But it's a lot easier to find missing elements on mobile because most of the time they're just hidden on mobile. So you can make those visible again pretty easily. So that looks good. This looks good. It looks like the last element I have here is just a subscription little box, and I'm just gonna like drag and drop and make sure things are making sense here. Let's see, I think ideally this would all fit on one line, but because it doesn't and it is small, I'm just gonna make it bigger and then I'm gonna center justify it. So there's no rhyme or like reason or right or wrong there. It's just like the instinct to want things to be tidy. I'm also going to center justify this button. I'm going to center justify the success message as well. Okay. Well, let me try that again. Center. Oh, you know what I have to do here? It already is centered. It's the text. Okay. So I'm going to save this. Your changes and your edits are going to be saved automatically as you're kind of working with things. But it's always good to there's no reason not to manually save. So we're already 32 minutes into this video, so I'm not going to like go through every single page on this site for you. I think we covered a lot of troubleshooting where you're going to find the things that you might be looking for, things to try, different tools like the toolbar, zoom out, that are just going to help you as you're kind of troubleshooting the mobile view of your website. The final tip that I have, and it's not even a tip, it's wildly necessary, is that every time you make changes to the mobile view of your site, you want to make sure that you're hitting this publish button. I can't tell you the number of times somebody has come to me and said, I have all of these things on my website, but they're not on the live view. Or, I made the updates that you suggested, but I still can't see them. You have to hit publish in order for any of the edits that you make, whether it's desktop or mobile view, to be live. So definitely hit publish, especially if you've spent a ton of time in the editor and then you're, pulling the website open on your phone and you're not seeing the things, all the hard work that you've done. Got to hit publish. So the very final thing is this is a pretty good tool let me go back to my homepage over here since we've spent a little bit of time on this. You can, just like you can in the desktop view of the editor, preview this, and it's great to preview it, but it's not exactly, everybody's mobile device is different, and has different breakpoints, is a different size screen. And so the preview in the mobile view is helpful, but I definitely suggest to actually publish your changes and then take out your cell phone, right? And look at it on your cell phone. And I will often, as the last step, be on my cell phone and also be checking it on the editor so that I can make sure that those changes are actually making sense. So they did recently, Wix released a QR code that makes it really easy to preview. So that's a great option. You can take your phone out, you can scan this, and then again, make sure everything is published and kind of then do those final tweaks to your site so that it's not just looking good on desktop, not just looking good on the mobile preview here, but like actually in real life on your phone. So that's it. Those are my tips for optimizing your website for mobile. I hope that you guys found, if not all of the information helpful, some of the information helpful. If you have specific questions, if you have an idea for a video of something you'd love to learn on Wix, drop that in the comments, and thanks for watching.